All right, welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today we are pleased to welcome Dr. Corey Seemiller. She's a faculty member in the Department of Leadership Studies in Education and Organizations at Wright State University. She's the author of the Student Leadership Competencies Guidebook, a prominent resource for developing youth and college student leadership programs. And her other books focus on today's young people and include Generation Z Goes to College, Generation Z Leads, Generation Z A Century in the Making, and Generation Z Learns. You might get the impression that she cares about Generation Z. Now, her TED Talk on Generation Z, she gave it at TEDx Dayton, and it has over 200,000 views. Her work's been featured in news publications, podcasts, and journals all over the world. So we are so pleased today to welcome Dr. Seemiller to the show. Welcome aboard, Dr. Seemiller.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to share a little bit of my background with you all today. As you know, you probably heard from my title, somewhat of the punchline of the stories in the title, but I think there's lessons that we learn throughout our lives, and we carry those with us, and some of them stick for a really long time. And I had a really interesting kind of unfolding experience that was a lesson after a lesson after a lesson that really taught me about resilience. So if you go back to high school for me, which was a little while ago, but I was back in high school, and I had an opportunity to join our high school leadership program. We had a pretty cool program. We would do activities for 8th graders in our local middle school. And I was really excited to apply to be a part of this. I had always been a leader. I had been, stepped up in every kind of role as a kid, and I was ready and primed to go to do this. And I applied, and wouldn't you know that I was one of the very few people that actually didn't get selected. So my heart was broken. I was told, I'm sort of not leadership quality at the time, maybe not ready to be a leader. And I was heartbroken. And I got involved in some other things, so I definitely stuck with it. But the next year came around, and I said, I'm going to apply again. So I applied again, and I actually got in this time, which was really great. This was my junior year, and I ended up being very involved in this program all the way through my senior year. I mean, by the time I was a senior, I was actually, developing portions of the program. I mean, I was stepping up into this role. So at the end of my senior year, I had an opportunity to apply to our college leadership program, the college I was going to, and each high school could nominate one person who had leadership promise. And I applied, and I mean, everybody, said, oh, you're a shoo-in, you're going to get it. This is made for you. And of course, wouldn't you know, I applied and I got a rejection letter. And I was told that, again, I don't have really what it takes to step up into this leadership program. And the worst part of it all was that my best friend from high school got picked, and she was supposed to be my college roommate. So I ended up living with her my first year of college, where she would scurry off to all these leadership events. And again, I was heartbroken yet a second time that I didn't get into a leadership program. But I think what's interesting about it is, I love leadership. I've always loved it. And when I graduated from college, I ended up working with students in colleges and universities doing leadership development. And if you actually fast forward 25 years later, almost to the month, I calculated it, I became the director of one of the most prestigious college leadership programs in the country. And now people actually hire me to go out and set up high school and college leadership programs, the very two programs that I actually didn't even get into, at least the high school one at first, because I stuck with it. And I wasn't going to let anybody tell me that this couldn't be my dream. And I just kept going back and doing it and doing it and doing it. And I said, I'm just going to prove you all wrong here. I'm going to step up and keep showing up, because for me, I didn't want anybody else to shape my dreams. And so the fact that people actually hire me to do something that I wasn't even selected to do for free is a real testament to the energy and the resilience that I had. And so I think about my life, and I think about rejection. And rejection is an opportunity for a couple things. It's an opportunity to recalibrate and maybe take a different direction, or it's an opportunity to step up and just do it again and do it again and do it again. And you can't win if you don't play. And so that's my motto. And so I just keep showing up and keep showing up. And so my message to you all is, you're going to get rejected from things. You've been rejected from things. This is how life works. But it's how you handle that, how you step up, how you change course, or how you just stick with it, that is where the real heart of it all is. And here I am now, even beyond that, 25 years later, now I'm actually a professor of leadership. And I'm here talking to you today as a professor of leadership. And if only my high school guidance counselor could actually see this, maybe that would be the best part of it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, I want to dig into this a little bit. Um, let's go back in time. You were interested in leadership from a very young age. That's unusual. Why the interest in leadership? What pulled you towards that?
I always liked being the one that knew the most and that people came to because I had some type of answer. And in my mind, that's what leaders were, is the person who you came to get an answer and maybe even some direction. So even as a very little kid, I would always um, step into the role as leader. When I was really young, I was in elementary school, I decided I was fascinated with the Army, and I created my own neighborhood army. Now, we didn't do anything Army-like other than just be a little group of people. And I, of course, declared myself the general. And this was when I was young in elementary school. I just wanted to be the one where people came to and said, you seem important, you seem to be in charge. Now, over time, my view of leadership has changed considerably from that. But that was always my idea of wanting to just have people really think highly of me and what I bring to a situation.
Hmm. Well, it seems to have worked out for you pretty well. When we think about leadership, I think especially with younger kids who might be watching this, a lot of kids aren't seeking out leadership opportunities. At least they're not thinking of them in formal opportunities. What are ways that kids can become a leader without being part of a program or without applying for something? What are leadership opportunities that kids have at their fingertips right now?
And that's such an important question too, because there's far more informal leadership opportunities than there are formal ones. And certainly we've learned that these formal programs don't necessarily mean that you're going to eventually end up as whatever this leader is, or that if you're not in one, you won't. But even as very, very young children, teaching, things like sharing, listening, just straight kindness and respect. These are really strong leadership qualities that carry all the way through. I teach classes on emotional intelligence. And this is, we're talking about, corporate leaders who are learning how to simply be nice to their employees. These are things that we can practice and learn all through our lives and just day-to-day interactions. Sometimes it might mean going over to somebody at recess and saying, hey, I noticed you're sitting here by yourself. Do you want to hang out? That's a leadership moment. It's seeing that there's the teacher might need some help in a class, is stepping up, staying after and saying, hey, can I help you? These small things often are far more shaping than we give them credit for. So it isn't always that you have to be the captain of a sports team. And that's not what I thought when I was younger. But now that I've had a chance to kind of see leadership unfold, I see so many opportunities that are just out there to say, I'm going to step into a leadership experience and just by virtue of kind of being a kind and generous and caring human being.
That's brilliant. I love that. I just got back from a walk with my wife, and as we were going around the block, our little neighbor, who's 5 years old, maybe 6, he yelled out to us to say hello, and we started commenting just back and forth to each other. He is so wonderful, and we love him so much. And what it came back down to was that he is showing leadership qualities, that he's being kind, he's reaching out to kids. And in our case, we thought our little girl has a lot of spunk, and he reins her in. And so when she goes too far, he puts her in her place, but then shows love and kindness towards her afterwards. And we thought, wow, isn't that amazing that this 5, 6 year old is already showing these leadership qualities and developing that. So fantastic. I want to dig in a little bit on rejection. I love that you talked about this. And this is a theme that we've seen on Virtual School Assembly of our speakers who have come in. They're the best failures in the world. It's people who have tried and failed, and then become superstars. And you certainly fall in that same category. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you dealt with rejection early on? I mean, it must have been devastating for you that first time not making it into the Leadership Academy, and then again in college when you went through that. How did you deal with the rejection?
Well, both times were slightly different. The first time I was rejected, I could sort of couch it in the fact that I was one of the youngest people who applied. They told me that maybe next year I could do it. So in my mind, that rejection felt a little less personal because I felt like maybe they were just trying to accept juniors and seniors. So I could sort of justify it like that. Was it still a letdown? Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge letdown. There were lots and lots of tears shed. The one saving grace about that, though, was that I didn't have a lot of friends that got accepted that year either. They were mostly older kids. So I felt like, okay, well, now I don't have to at least watch them all go off to the leadership program when I don't get to. Now, the college experience was drastically different. When I lost out to my best friend, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And it was pretty much a shock to everyone, because even my best friend thought that I was going to get selected. And so it put a great strain on our relationship. So not only was I dealing with rejection, I was comparing myself to the person who got it, who was my best friend at the time, and knowing that she was going to be my future college roommate. So it was like I had to live the rejection over and over and over. So in high school, when I didn't get into the program, I applied the next year and I got in and I was fine. For the college one, I didn't have a second chance. And my friend would, go off to her events. So, I mean, it was like a year-long process of continually feeling rejected, where she would kind of quietly scurry off so I wouldn't notice she was going, because every time she would go to something, again, my heart would break a little bit. And I would say, oh, it's just a reminder that I'm not good enough. And that helped me to some extent, because a year is a really long time to sit and feel just really bad for yourself. So I was able to find other things to get involved in. And as a matter of fact, those other things are what led me to actually be able to do the work that I do today in leadership. So there is some sense of irony with it, where I was able to go on into other leadership type positions, which funneled me into the career that I'm in today.
That's fantastic. I think it's really hard sometimes, because kids face rejection on multiple fronts. How you were able to rationalize it in high school and say, well, of course it didn't make sense. It's a lot harder when everyone else gets in and you're the one that doesn't. But I love that your advice here on, well, that opens doors to other things. And sometimes it's not about giving up on your dreams, but recognizing other opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about some of those other opportunities that you've seen just because you didn't get what you wanted the first time? How has that opened doors for you?
Well, one thing I've noticed is I've become incredibly persistent. If I really want something, I come to realize that I often don't get it the first time. That's just my track record. So I don't get as discouraged as I used to. So the opportunities that open for me are the ones that I'm creating for myself that I wouldn't have normally done. I just kind of say, oh, didn't get it again. Well, I'll try again. I mean, it just happens quite a bit. I often say to myself, I don't understand why I fail more than anybody I've ever met in my life. And then I realize it's because I try. I put myself out there probably more than the average person does. And so just statistically, I'm going to not get everything that I want. But this idea of persistence has opened up doors to say, okay, either I'm going to just keep trying the same thing again, or I'm going to make some changes and do something different. In some cases, I couldn't try again. Like my college leadership program, it was one chance. That was it. But what I was able to do is find other things to get involved in. I actually became a resident assistant, and that helped because it helped me pay for college, but it also led me into my career field. I joined a sorority, which I never anticipated doing, and I loved it. And I stepped up, and I actually ended up becoming president of Panhellenic Council, which is the president of all the sororities on my college campus. Wow. So things that I probably never would have imagined myself doing had I actually gotten what I wanted in the first place. So sometimes I think, there's some type of recalibration that happens without us even knowing, where some things, if you wish so hard for them, they might not have been the right thing. Maybe I needed to be rejected from those programs in order to be the person that I am today, the persistent person that I am today, and the professor of leadership that I am today, where I think that anybody and everybody has the capacity to be a leader, which I don't think I would have thought about had I not been one of those people that wasn't deemed a leader early on.
That's awesome. And that's something I hadn't even thought about coming into this is I love your story of resilience, but even if you had never gotten what you wanted, what you did develop was a skill, an ability, a character trait in persistence that you might not have otherwise gained. And I'm sure that has served you well in all aspects of your life, not just in getting what you want. So that's fantastic. Let's fast forward back to the present. We're in a situation now where a lot of kids are stuck at home. Leadership opportunities might seem minimal as we have less contact with other people and things like that. But so what would your advice to kids be for right now? How can you continue to develop leadership, or what kind of opportunities are out there right now so that you can continue to learn and grow?
Yeah, that, we often think because we're sort of, inside, or, we're kind of away from the normalcy of our lives, that there isn't really much out there to do, but there really is actually. So there's kind of two lines of thinking here. One is, if you want to, increase your skill level on things, this is the perfect time to get online and find some free classes on things. You want to be better at public speaking, there might be some great YouTube videos and things that'll show you how to do that. And you can actually, get in your bedroom and talk, stand up and talk and give a speech. I mean, this is a great time to practice those things without other people around, and you have some time, you have some space to do that. So there's certainly a lot of great things you can do online. But I also know that, for me, leadership is in the heart. And, a lot of what is happening with leadership is what's just happening in our own interpersonal relations right now. It's the way that we're interacting with our families. It's the way that we're making sure to reach out to our friends, whether that's, online or, through FaceTime, something where we're actually connecting with people and trying to be the one to initiate that. It's stepping up to, help your family as they're, doing things around the house, or how can I pitch in to help with dinner? That's practicing leadership. And leadership doesn't have to be on this podium in front of a whole group of people. Leadership happens when you interact with people to make something better. And if you're in a situation where you're at home and you're interacting and you're making your home life better for everyone there, then you're doing leadership. So there's lots of ways that you can practice it, and you can actually do leadership, in the situation that we're in right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate your time today, Dr. Seemiller. If people want to learn more about you or more from you, where should they go?
You can find me online. I am at CoreySeemiller.com.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.